Okay, don't tell me I don't love you. Order the thermometer. Let's see if this controller and MOSFETs are a real issue with our upgrades. We're back inside the Steam Deck, and I'm noticing there is very poor contact on the controller, and it's probably going to be really near impossible to show you that, but it looks like that thermal pad shifted, and it's not making great contact. So I'm just inspecting it right now just to see, like, before I take it off, like, seriously, like, if there are any problems with my application. And it looks like it's just that controller, which it's not making. So I don't know if you can see that. You see how only half of the, half of the thermal pad has an indentation on it. It's a good signification that it wasn't making great contact, which is fine. It's part of the process. This piece of copper is pretty heavy. There's weight to this. Not a pound or anything, but there's weight to it. Okay, so our plan today is to take this thermometer, and then we're gonna place these things in two spots. I'm gonna go for this VRM back here and this controller right here. Question is, how are we gonna secure this? That's the real question. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna punch a hole in our screen. Not a big hole. Or maybe, will this thread through? If this threads through, nope, we're gonna have to punch a hole through the screen. We're gonna use our little drill bit, our screwdriver. Sweet. Putting this thing together 10 times harder now. Fuck. Oh well, it is what it is. Okay, that took way too long. We didn't break anything, that's a good sign. Just gonna keep this thing plugged in so power draw is always consistent. So right now we're stock mode, meaning we blocked our vent fan. We do not have the copper plate in here because it's right here. And we're tied into the MOSFET and the VRM right here. So I mean the controller and the VRM. Technically we still have thermal pads here and here. That's all right. I don't think that's going to change too much. The fact that we got active cooling on the MOSFET through this vent hole, I know this will, but I figured this was the easiest way to get these probes in. So you got to do what you got to do. We're back in the Witcher 3. The reason why we're using the Witcher 3 is because it really pushes the system. This brightness, hold on, let me turn the crazy glare. Better? I think it's better with that light. I just realized that. I have no idea which one's which. I didn't label them. Okay, well, we'll just go with this one being 1. And this one 2. And then we'll figure that out. Oh, that's funny. I'm assuming the hotter one's the controller. Okay, so we're just in the same scene that we've been pretty much doing the whole time. All right, here we go. Okay, so we're running on stock mode. Stock mode, we are temps. I'm assuming the T1 right here is our controller. I'm assuming that because it's the hotter one, typically the hotter one out of the two. And we're just gonna push it, you know, we're gonna try to find, I'm gonna let this heat up. It goes right here. This is my view. Cool. So I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee. I'm gonna hit the time lapse. Okay guys, so we've been a little bit over 10 minutes playing. We're gonna let it run for a little bit longer. All right, that's 3 minutes, so it's a little bit over 15 minutes. We'll go call it room temp first. Room temp, we're going off this center point, 19.4. GPUs, it's 78. 78. 78. So we're going with 78. CPUs at 81. 81. 81. 81. Fan speeds at 5100. 5121. Controllers at 66.7. 66.7. And VRMs at 54.3. And then now in real time, let's watch this thing cool down. So what we're expecting to see is our CPU and GPU temps to drop, also our fan speed to drop, and we're gonna see these things increase. All right, this is gonna go up, all the numbers on the Steam Deck is gonna go down. So now we're gonna demod it, literally by just pulling this off. Put it right back where it was. If anything is going to get the hottest, I would say the controller is going to get hotter, but the VRM may stay somewhat the same. Okay, so automatically the fan has dropped. It is more audible now, if you can hear it over the rain, but that's because we cut a hole right next to the fan. We're going to let this run for 10 minutes and we'll see what we got. Okay, so we've had this thing running for a little bit over 10 minutes, and obviously we already knew the temperatures were going to drop from our other testing. What we're curious about is the VRM and the controller. And like I knew, remember, we have in the back of this, we actually have thermal pads, heat pipe attached to our heat shield, which I'm sure is helping dissipate that temperature because we no longer have this intake fan. Fan speed is, we had it on blocks earlier, just I wanted to give it a chance to kind of cool down a little bit more, and then I placed it back on the table to see an equilibrium. Obviously we can see this fan speed ramping up now, and I think that's all because we're just really hot and we're sitting on the table, so our temps are not great right now just because we're on the surface. Obviously, if we lift it up like this, you'll see the temps drop. But we'll take everything off the table because that way all the tests are consistent. But you'll notice you'll definitely get better um, temperatures with this thing off the table. So one thing to add real quick is that our controller and our VRMs were well within specs for temperatures, meaning they're meant for 100 over 100. I think the controller's set for 105 degrees Celsius is its max temp. So and the VRM's at 65 C. So we're doing really good on temperatures. So we'll take the room real quick. Room is warmer too now. Actually, no. All right, 19, 18.9. How did we get colder in here? How is that even possible? 18.9, let's put 19. Within margin, GPU is at 72.
CPU is at 75. Fan speed's at 41. Controller, we'll call that 72.9. I should just put 63. Just put 73. And then the VRM's at 65.7.
Okay, so for everyone that thought that our modded fan was going to be an issue for the VRM and the controller, it's wrong. This doesn't lie. It's attached straight. This is directly attached to our controller and our VRM, the hotter VRM too. I picked the hottest one, the one above the CPU. I believe it's a CPU. So let's say I got that wrong. Let's just average it to 70, all within margin. All of these temps are well within margin now. So that's not an issue. Your MOSFET and VRM are going to be 100% fine. Your APU and your APU in general is running cooler. Your fans are not ramping up as high. This is a kind of a no-brainer mod, so I get it. Valve intended this to be a negative pressure, a negative airflow system, but I'm just saying, regardless if they intended that, the temperatures are all within safety parameters, well within safety parameters. So what we're going to do next is we're going to tear it back down, and we're going to put the copper plate back on and see how much of a difference does the copper plate make with all the other modifications. But real quick, and we'll redo this on our download afterwards, is clearly cutting a ventilation hole in the back of your Steam Deck, this hole, and then attaching thermal pads to the heat pipe right here and extra thermal pads down here on some of the MOSFETs is a good thing. It works. It just fucking works. So we're gonna go ahead and power down, and we're gonna put the copper plate back on. After I removed the copper plate, I realized I had very poor contact on the controller, so I had to reroute the probes, and that means I'm gonna have to redo the tests, unfortunately. Wow. That was a bitch and a half. All right, take two. All right, so we actually found out that this top one is the VRM and not the other way around. The controller is the bottom one. So we're gonna go VRM and then con. Oh my god, that was a bitch. Notice that we have these two screws out. Those are just for right here. I'm not worried about those. It's just so crazy. If you watch this, like the fans are not even on right now. Like, I don't think the fans will turn on for a while. So one thing we're gonna probably really notice is these two, our VRM and our controller, are gonna go up. These are gonna stay relatively the same. Everything's gonna kind of hit an equilibrium because of this copper plate. Fans are still not on, which is fucking cool. We might end up rerunning the test depending on how crazy these numbers are, just because I think I got a lot better contact on the controller, because we had really poor contact on that controller when I took off that heat shield, so it might not be the best accurate reading. So currently running fully modded. We have the copper plate and we have our ventilation fan. What you're going to notice is these two numbers are going to stay the same, like pretty close to each other. The VRM is this top one, and the the controller is this bottom one. So let this thing run for a bit. I'm gonna hit that time lapse, let this thing run for 15 minutes. Okay, so we have been running for a very, very long time. About 15 minutes. I know screen dimmed down on us. It was downstairs. So we already know from a previous video that the copper plate works. It works amazingly. But we did not know the temps on our VRM and our controller. But just like I said, these two are gonna be same temperature after a while, just because the heat soak, you know. So I don't know how long this was dimmed, but well, let's let this play for a minute. We'll take the temperature of the room, 19.1. Where's my pen? Where did I put my pen? Right here. 19.1. GPU is going to be amazing. But no, it's not that far off from the modded version. So we're going to 71 with a GPU and 70. I'm going to go 73 at any point. I'm just going to do that for now. 72 on the CPU. Fan speeds at, call that 3800. And then we'll call that 69 on our VRM. And 65.7. Oh my god, it's the exact same as the mod. Cool. So that's it. I'm gonna go ahead real quick. I'm gonna talk about our findings. And as we can see, after heat soak, the copper plate is pretty much the same as the mod. Obviously, the VRM is a little bit hotter by 4 degrees, right? So copper, this is the mod, this is just the fan. And it's pretty close to each other. Obviously, the CPU is running a little hotter. The fan speeds are lower, but all in all, very much the same. And that's exactly what I assumed it would be, because with or without the mod, because it doesn't matter. It's all about the amount of heat soak you have and how quickly you can get rid of that heat. And the fact is, it takes longer for this to heat up with the copper mod, but with the copper mod, it takes longer to heat up but then you get a better overall equilibrium of temperatures. So notice that 69, 72, 71, everything is a lot closer to each other in temperatures, including the controller. So we're actually heating up the whole total system a little bit more together. And I'm sure if we would let this run a little bit longer, it would get pretty close to what we did with the mod. Secondly, now the main comparison is the no mod. So basically running stock. So you're running stock. The only good thing about running stock is your controller is cooler. Remember, your controller is cooler because there's active cooling on your controller when you have the fan intake blowing, pulling air in. So air comes in here, goes into the fan, comes out the top. The controller is right here, meaning that there is a lot more active cooling on the controller. So that makes 100% sense why the controller is cooler with the stock mode, the no mods, than it is with either the copper or fan mod. But funnily enough, the copper and the fan mod are the exact same temperatures. So, in closing, you can safely, in my opinion, and through my tests, you can safely do the fan mod as long as you add thermal pads. And the copper mod is pretty much irrelevant unless you really care about that 3000 RPMs and dropping 4 degrees on the VRM. That's it. Like everything else is going to be the same. You get a little bit cooler VRM and a little bit slower fan speed. Honestly, I like the slower fan speed because I tend to, since the fan speed has been lower, I tend to run the Steam Deck without headphones, which is great. Okay. But
Xing everything I just said because I ended up redoing the test because I didn't want you guys to say, oh, you said you had poor contact, so how can we trust your test? So I redid it, and I'm going to keep the original one so you can know my pain and my struggles and what I went through for y'all, so that we can have a consensus idea of whether or not it's safe to do this mod. So here's the time lapse of me redoing it all, and we'll do our closing outtake.
So this is test run number 2. It's been on for about 12 or so minutes, maybe a little bit longer. And reason why we're doing a secondary test is because I just wanted to make sure the contact points were as good as possible. And from this testing, we do have higher temps, but somewhat in margin. Pretty much everything is the same though, but we'll record it now. And then we'll demod it and do another time lapse. Room temp is 18.8. GPU 79, 79, 79. It's a little hotter this time. 79 was the peak. I know I've seen this, which is weird. 80. So one thing real quick, if you're watching the time lapse, we made a lot better contact with the heatsink. With the heatsink, not heatsink, with the heat shield with thermal pads. Like I cleaned it all up. Like now it's really, really good. So that's why I think this temperature is more equilibrium now than it was before. Because before it was a delta of 3 degrees between the GPU and CPU, but I think because we have better contact on that heatsink, on the heat shield now, That's why they're closer in temps now. So we'll just call it 80 and 79. And then fan speeds are 5100. So fan speed's about the same, 5100. We'll just type that 5100. VRMs are 67.4. And then 57 on the controller. Let's do a screen test real quick. Screen's at 42.4. Room temp fan. Cool. So now we're gonna demod it again and leave it down. Hit the time lapse, and obviously much more audible, but already see all the temps dropping. 48. So time lapse. Here we go. What? The what? Yeah, just squeeze until it won't hurt anymore. Oh, definitely a lot. That's why we do two tests. Room temp's 18.5. I don't know how it got cooler, but it, oh yeah, because I had the fan on.
GPU 74, so 74. What are we doing? 73? 73? We're going up 73. CPU 74.
Damn, that thermal pad really made a huge difference. I'm glad I changed the test. I redid the test. That's huge. Fan speed 3800. This was a lot of work, y'all, and I hope you guys appreciate it very much. It's actually pretty hot in here now. This was a pain. This was a pain. Just check, make sure I'm in shot real quick. Yeah, we're good. All right. I know my videos aren't the most well produced, like Linus or Gamers Nexus or my boy David does tech, but this is how I'm gonna roll. I do this for fun, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But let's talk about our findings. So first of all, in that last clip, me talking about it, I don't know why I wrote 69 on that. I don't know. It's my favorite number, I suppose. But it was pretty much the same, like we were talking about. Pretty much the same temperatures on the VRM and the controller. Like I assumed, because we tied them two together with a big copper heatsink, they're going to be the same heat. They're going to be the... So our findings after redoing the test are pretty much the same, except for the fact that our controller is slightly warmer. The no mod went up about 3 degrees, and the modded version went up 5 degrees. So I'm glad we redid it, because 5 degrees is a lot on that part. It looked like we had pretty good contact on the VRM. It was 66 to start, and then we got 67 on our second test, and then 73 modded on the first, and we got 75. That's within margin, in my opinion. I'm not too worried about that. But seeing that the difference in the controller, which had the worst contact point that I found, it makes perfect sense why that's hotter now, because it had, you know, the probe was touching the controller a lot better. So that's why now we have a better reading. I know it was a pretty good contact on the copper plate, because I made sure that was good. You could see it on the video. So the big takeaway, big takeaway, I think the biggest takeaway is that without let me start over. The big takeaway is, in fact, that the fan mod, meaning
cutting a hole in your Steam Deck where the fan is completely safe. Completely safe according to my testing for your VRM and controller. They're all within safety margins, well within there. And I believe the controller is rated for 105 degrees, and we peaked at 70 with our fan mod. Remember, the fan mod has thermal pads on the heat pipe, additional thermal pads on the MOSFETs because there was poor contact that we found, and I actually ended up putting another thermal pad on the controller only because I destroyed the old thermal pad with all my probing and stuff like that, so it wasn't an even surface, so I put a little tiny piece of thermal pad to even it out. So technically none of it's running stock. We're not even running stock when I say we're running stock because we still have the thermal pads on there, meaning your system is going to run hotter than my system. So it is, in my opinion, 100% safe to run the fan mod as long as you put thermal pads. And even without thermal pads, I think it might be just fine. I'm not going to run that test because I think that's irrelevant. If you're going to cut a hole in your Steam Deck, I think you should replace the thermal pads or add the extra thermal pads like I did. And if you have any questions on that, please message me in the comments below or refer to the original video. The ones on the heat pipe are 1 millimeter thermal pads. I used only 1 millimeter thermal pads, but I had to stack them to make it 2 millimeters on the heatsink part. According to the copper test, the room was slightly warmer at 19.1, but our GPU was at 71 versus 73 on the modded version. So we're gonna go modded and copper. We were 71 on the copper, 73 on the modded, 74 CPU on the modded, 72 in the copper. So we had a delta of 1 to 2. The fan speed was the same, 3,800 RPMs, but the main difference is the VRM and the controller. The VRM and the controller was a lot cooler on the copper mod, and that was because they hit at equilibrium, meaning they hit that peak heat soak for that area of the copper plate, which is good because the 65.7 is damn near right where we are without the mod in general. So without the mod, meaning no fan, no copper, we're 67.4 on the VRM. We're only 2 degrees, less than 2 degrees? Less than, a little bit more than 2 degrees warmer with the copper mod. So it is, in my opinion, it's 100% safe. So I feel very comfortable leaving the fan mod. I don't know if I'm going to keep the copper mod per se because there are issues with it, meaning it doesn't close properly. Steam Deck doesn't close properly. It is a lot heavier, but it is pretty cool how the fan doesn't ramp up for a while. I remember I was playing Gravedigger last night, and I don't think the fan turned on for about 5 minutes, which was pretty freaking cool when you think about it. And that's only because the copper plate takes a lot longer to heat up than just that thin piece of aluminum. So all in all, I suggest that I believe, and once again, do it at your own risk, the fan mod is completely safe, and even safer, especially safer, when you add the extra thermal pads, which I highly recommend to do. I say if you're not going to put the thermal pads, don't do the fan mod. If you're not going to do the thermal pads, don't do the fan mod. When it comes to the copper, I don't think there's any real point to do the copper. It's more work than it's worth, and the results from it is it's not that much better than just doing the fan mod. If in the comments in the previous videos we alluded to doing a intake fan for the Steam Deck, meaning we would put a small intake fan right here, which would pull in air through this vent, and then the original fan, imagine this is closed, will be the outtake. So cold air in, out, hot air out. I was going to do that mod. 100% going to do that mod until I figured out these thermals. Now I think there's really no point in doing that mod. Two main things. You're going to have a bulky fan on the outside, and secondly, it's going to be really hard to deliver power to that mod. Doing the fan mod is going to require either you to splice into the power draw of the original fan, which is, those wires are tiny and I don't even want to do it. Secondly, you could tie in through the USB-C port, which means you'll have to do a hub if you want to charge the Steam Deck and run the fan at the same time, or have the fan running externally. And I just don't think that's worth it. And all in all, it's easier to do the intake fan mod, cutting the hole in the fan to allow it to have less air restriction. So I don't think I'm gonna do that test unless you guys want me to, but you guys gotta really want it. I mean, hit that like, hit that comment the hell out of that, then maybe I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it if you comment it up. If this video gets 100 likes, I'll do the fan, and the intake fan mod. If it gets 100 likes, I feel like that's fair. 100 likes. I don't even think the other one. I think the other one got 150. Actually, let's push that. Let's do 500 likes. Come on. I put a lot of work into this. 500 likes. I will do the intake fan mod. I will do it only USB with a USB plug, because I don't want to splice into a fan. It's not worth it. I'd probably end up breaking that wire if I try to splice into that. It's so tiny and I'm shitty at soldering, so I don't want to go that far with that mod. One more time. And I'll repeat myself. Someone's already said I repeat myself a lot. I am a coach, so I tend to repeat myself to make sure everyone knows what I'm talking about. Safe to do the fan mod, but still do it at your own risk. But you got to make sure you do the thermal pads. Copper mod is irrelevant, in my opinion. I would even suggest doing it unless you really want to tinker and do it. But remember, if you do the copper mod, you're gonna lose your main intake, because the copper is so thick that the proper airflow that comes through here, through this vent and up and into the fan, if you put the copper mod, this is going to get tight and there's going to be no proper airflow. It's going to actually be so jammed up that air is probably going to go hit over here and then loop all the way around, because that copper thing is so damn thick, meaning you're pretty much suffocating this fan. So if you're going to do the copper mod, you have to cut an intake in the fan. You have to. You have to, because you're just not going to have enough space in there for airflow. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, hit that like button. If you love the content, hit the subscribe button. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. And hopefully after this video, we can lay to rest the fact that even though Steam designed this thing for negative airflow, right? Even though they designed it for it, with our mod, it still runs in safety, with safety parameters. Oh yeah, one thing, SSD, not worried about it. If the VRAM and the especially the controller is running as cool as they are, I am not worried about the SSD. There's no way the SSD is running hotter than the controller or the VRM. There's just no way. So I'm not even gonna look at that. I don't even care. Like I did the thermal tests on them already, and it's on the exterior, and they're fine in my book. So I'm not even worried about the SSD. I think the SSD is gonna be 100% fine. Honestly, in my opinion, and this video still hasn't ended. Honestly, in my opinion, I think your Steam Deck will run longer with this mod, because your APU will run cooler, your fan doesn't have to work as hard, meaning your overall power draw is down. You're gonna get the best out of your Steam Deck while running the coolest possible. It's an all-around no-brainer. I don't understand why Valve did this in the first place, but I would assume it's because of the noise, and also because they skimped on the thermal contact on some of the components, including the VRM and the controller. So it was like the lesser of two evils. So they chose to do the negative air pressure just to save on cost. I think that's why they did it overall. I don't think they did it just for these components per se, especially after my findings. So, but then again, take that for what it's worth. It was only one Steam Deck that I done the test on. There might be better ones out there, there might be worse ones out there, but I'm gonna end this goddamn video because this thing's damn near an hour long. I'll catch you guys in the next one.